Hey, thank you. Thank you. Oh, it's so wonderful to be here with all of you guys and to get this opportunity to celebrate and talk to and talk about the twins. Please welcome Tim and Phil Hanseroth. The Hanseroth Twins. Hey, guys.
Hi, long time no see.
Yeah. Well, this is different. I've been working on these questions all day, but I've been thinking about them for a long time, maybe years. And so I want to kind of paint a picture for you guys before we start talking to the twins and picking their brains. I want to take you back to Seattle in the mid to late 90s. The record labels are starting to leave. All the rock and roll bands have come up and taken the city by storm and changed our history in the Pacific Northwest forever and ever. And these guys are heroes to us and always will be. And Tim and Phil are in a rock and roll band that's influenced by this movement, and so many other rock and roll bands. And they're rock and roll bands called the Fighting Machinists. But whether or not there's really enough gas left in the tank in Seattle, Washington, to break another rock and roll band like Pearl Jam or Nirvana is to be determined at the time. They get a record deal. They're working with the same producer that made Pearl Jam 10 and Temple of the Dog, Rick Parasher, at London Bridge Studios, the legend, the lore around London Bridge Studios. And all of the hopefulness is there, but there may not be quite enough energy left in the city for what the twins had to offer. And things were already starting to change in Los Angeles. There were bands sort of getting signed that were in the vein of what was happening in Seattle, but it was just a little more trite, a little more temporary. And the pressure was on. It was coming from the labels for the twins to write songs like that and to acquiesce and maybe make the transition from this gritty, soulful Seattle movement to this kind of poppier, more monetized version of that music that was happening in its wake. And, it wasn't working for them. They weren't happy with it. They were making song after song after song. Their band was getting tired, they were getting bored, and the twins were starting to think about where their music and their humanity came from. And right about that time, a song made its way to the ears of a teenaged lesbian. When the rock and roll dream was maybe starting to fade a little bit, I found the remnant of it, and I heard a song in my bedroom one day on a demo that I had got from somebody that happened by the famed London Bridge Studios, and I'd like to play you what I heard right now.
All of these lines across my face tell you the story of who I am. So many stories of where I've been and how I got to where I am. But these stories don't mean anything when you got no one to tell them to. It's true, I was made for you. I climbed across the mountain tops, I swam all across the ocean blue, crossed all the lines and I broke all the rules. But baby, I broke them all for you.
It was a diamond in the rough. And I heard what none of the labels heard. I heard what the radio stations didn't hear. I heard what the producer didn't hear. And I knew that these guys were special in all the world. And I also knew that that was my song. And
I can't understand for the life of me why it wasn't a hit when I sang.
yeah.
I mean, like,
And so coming down off of this rock and roll dream, and me wanting to come into it, we crossed paths and we collided for the first time. And this isn't about me and the Twins, but I wanted to give you the origins of how we got here so that you could understand why this is such an important moment in our music. So tell everybody a little bit from your own perspective how that felt for you guys to sort of leave that dream behind and maybe take a shot in the dark and a leap of faith at a new one.
it was a little scary. I remember kind of being bummed out, but not because the band exploded or anything. It was more because just sort of being young and not knowing what I was going to do, because I'd sort of put all my eggs in that basket. But I knew something was going to happen. I knew it was going to continue musically somehow. I just didn't know what.
Yeah, and I think it's hard because I haven't heard that song in so many years. I loved that, by the way.
But that was recorded in 1998, by the way. It was 20.
Yeah, I heard
how
it in
old was I?
1998,
20-something?
1998, 1999. Yeah.
I remember we worked at a marble and granite warehouse, and Phil came in one morning. It was like 7:30 in the morning, and he goes, "Man, you know that song I was working on? I wrote some words," and he pulled out literally a napkin, and I read the words, and I couldn't remember what the music was from the day before, and I was like, but I knew there was something very, very special about that song. I think somebody, you might have said recently, like, "Man, I knew that song was going to change my life," and I was like, "Fuck, I did too." Yeah. I did when I was reading the words, but that transition, it was hard, but I know something. I just hadn't learned yet that when something comes to an end or when something bad happens, it can lead to or open a door for something amazing. Now, I didn't know that back then, so it was really hard. And the band folded, and I'd quit after I got out of the union. They were like, "You sure you don't want to just temporarily?" I was like, "No, get me out of there." I'd completely stopped wanting to make music professionally. And so when we met, there was just nothing left to lose. It was like, this is just going to be for fun, and with no expectations. It doesn't have to be anything. And
That's when I like to find people, just nothing left to lose.
but it's an attitude I keep with me still. So it was hard, but it was also easy because it's like, cool, I don't have to worry about failing anymore.
Yeah.
You do.
So an interesting thing about that is that you hear this recording and it's, there's an electric guitar and like a little synthesizer. And, for a while between the rock band and our band, they played with a little boombox with beats on it. And they were trying to get back to their roots, but they weren't exactly quite sure how. And I think that people would be interested to know, Tim, about your relationship with the acoustic guitar when it entered your life and how you sort of learned it and became acquainted with it and how it informs your writing now as an Americana artist.
Well, yeah, that's a good. You gave me my first real acoustic guitar, and I had just been playing electric guitar primarily in this hard rock band, and although I always did love like Cat Stevens and Simon and Garfunkel and all this like rootsy kind of stuff, but my relationship with the acoustic guitar first was really born when we met, and Brandy called me one day. She got wind of the band breaking up, and she goes, "Hey. We met. Would you like to come down and play? I'm making a record." And she had this amazing guitar player already. I'm like, "Yeah, I guess I can. I'm not much of a session player, but I came down with my Marshall stack and my fucking black metal guitar, and she let me play on a couple songs, and it was awesome. But and it didn't happen overnight. But Brandy, she had this little guitar she let me use, and I played it all over the first record, notably on "What Can I Say" and "Someday Never Comes," and I loved that guitar. And it's the first guitar that I sat down and actually started learning how to really finger pick. And
T-Bone showed you a bunch of cool picking patterns,
T-Bone
right?
did, yeah. He showed me that, I don't know if I guess it's called Travis picking or Carter picking or finger picking, I don't know. He showed me, but I don't think I really learned what he was trying to show me, but I did learn something. But that changed everything for me because before on the electric guitar, I would always write the music first, and then I'd be like, well, I guess I got to come up with some words. And but I wasn't at that place in my life where I was trying to express anything personally or emotionally. And when I started writing on the acoustic guitar, I would almost, it would just tap something into me where I would just sing, or at the same time I'd come up with the words, or maybe even the words first, and have this. So it really did unlock my songwriting.
Did it give you like better access to your real feelings because of its sort of vulnerability?
Maybe it quieted everything down. So it quieted everything down so I could just hear myself, and instead of like having this surge of adrenaline raging through my body, like, okay, I feel really good, so that must be a good song. It was more, I'm feeling good, so it must be great. It made everything quiet, and at that time I was going through a divorce too, and so I lived alone in this little tiny place under the freeway in north of downtown Seattle. So I had all this quiet time to myself, and I was going through this transition in my life that was pretty big. Again, another moment that I would come to find out later that it was actually a good thing for me, but it seemed terrible. So that coupled with that time, that was a really big time of change for me, and just having the access to that guitar and the quiet and just being alone really for the first time in my life, it was a good thing.
I remember that apartment so well.
I'm so
sorry. It was
sorry.
so tiny. I remember it was $400 a month.
$400 a month.
And
Yeah.
I remember like I would go over there to write with you, and you had tapestries hung all over your walls and like incense burning, and you have wolf spiders, and they were so big you could see them moving behind the tapestries.
They'd come out, and I grabbed a can of like some kind of aerosol spray and a lighter, and I burned this big spider about the size of my hand, and it fell down to the floor, and I was like, well, I'm just going to get a paper towel and just throw it away.
Yeah.
And I came back, and the thing was gone.
Yeah.
And I couldn't sleep for like fucking 2 nights because I slept on a mattress on the floor, so I was always like, like this burned up spider was watching me as I slept.
Yeah. And he would have you come over for dinner, and then it would be like a potato.
One of my favorite meals. But we wrote some songs. We recorded some songs.
Those were good times. Phil, I digress. Tell everybody about your relationship to the bass guitar, particularly the acoustic bass guitar, because, when I met you, you played a Flying V electric guitar in The Fighting Machinist, and somehow you made your way to the bass, and that's the instrument I think that's the most you, that you show real fidelity to that instrument. And I think I remember early on a guy called Michael Kelly giving you a very cheap bass that is still your favorite acoustic bass to this day.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Well, I started out playing bass when we were teenagers. He got an electric guitar, and I got just a cheap bass guitar that I saved up, like cutting grass and doing all that stuff, just the cheapest one you could get. And I figured, okay, we're halfway to a band. So like, later, and something to write with, and like later on we start the band with the other 2 guys, and I'm playing guitar, and this is great. Like I don't look back. But when the bass guitar kind of came back around when we started playing together, I was trying to find a way to reimagine as more of a rhythmic or less of a rhythmic thing, more melodic, and sort of like just find a way to be a drummer and like introduce some melody into those songs and fit in. And somebody had Michael Kelly sent me an acoustic bass guitar. And every time I've ever had my mitts on an acoustic bass, have absolutely hated the way they sound. And so I thought, man, you know what? This is like, maybe I can mess with this thing. And like, I was in a Mexican restaurant, what was the place called? Azteca up in Mount Lake Terrace. Yeah. Mariachi band comes around the table. I'm like, that dude's bass sounds great. Like, what is it? Flat wound strings, So I took this guitar they sent me, and I raised the action up really high, put flat wound strings, shoved some foam in between the bridge and the strings, and got the strings dirty. But, I remember putting olive oil and dirt and trying to, like, make them sound 100 years old. And, like, that was the thing that, like, with the acoustic bass that made it where I can make it a rhythmic, real percussive sound,
Who's the first person that ever told you guys about foam and paper between the strings on guitars? I remember that being an early thing. Was it T-Bone?
No, it was Tom Brousseau.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Who we used to play with, who was this amazing kind of like Midwestern folky guy. And we toured with him, and he told us one time, I met Johnny Cash behind the Ryman Theater, and we were like, well, what did he say? And he said he took a $1 bill out of his wallet, folded it up, and put it between his guitar strings and pushed it back by the bridge and said, now you can play it, and it'll sound like a freight train. And so I remembered that, you know, when I had that bass and I was trying to like get it to sound percussive. Yeah, that's the story behind it. So it's like a Johnny Cash thing, man. It's crazy, but
Yeah, and that's something that
I'm
both
like-
the twins do. It's always, you hear it sonically if you listen to any of our songs or deep cuts where acoustic guitar is kind of the principal instrument. You'll hear like, what is the sound of that thing? You know, A, it's probably an arch top, but
Yeah.
B, it's probably got a dollar bill in the strings.
Have you ever was
Yeah.
the first time we actually shoved a dollar bill in there and like, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's cool. You know, your bass playing on this album is incredible. And it's incredible, I think, in our band, too. I think our band is really special because of the fact that we worked for so long together as a trio without a drummer. It's a strange place for a bass player to find their feet without being able to lock to that kick drum, which just seems like the principal, you know, expectation of the bass guitar. And I think I remember reading one time, a long time ago, that Joni wanted to break free of that when she found Jaco, that she didn't want that kind of four on the floor, tied down bass thing. And I always loved how your bass playing works its way up the neck and is so melodic, and that there may be accidental harmonics, there may be accidental chords, but it's just really creative and unlike many other bass players. So
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that.
I guess that
Thank
wasn't
you.
a question. That was more like just,
Well,
it was just more like me talking. Okay. I have another question. So, for all these years, you guys, you write these amazing words. And, you know, I have two choices. I can sing them the way they are, or I can rewrite them and get into them and make them my own. And I write a lot of lyrics on my own about my life and experience, and a lot of times I write with your lyrics as starts. And sometimes they've even been, you know, sadly, like teardowns because of gender or life experience. And a good example, I think, would be how the three of us thought about recording Broken Homes early on when my parents are still married. and there's a line in there that says, you know, see the man it made, or the man they made. And I had to change that to all my debts are paid. And I felt this little flinch, this little tinge of pain in me that that they wouldn't get the chance sometimes to sing their own words about their own life. And yet, that's what this whole album is. Why don't you tell everybody what, you know, it felt like to write your words and your feelings and have them come out of your mouth instead of this big trumpet head?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's magic to sing a song, to write a song and have you sing it. And also, when we are in a situation where you need to change the words instead of just singing it like a man, you actually there actually are times where you know how to say what we're trying to say better than we can do it. So it is one of those things. Sometimes it's gender, sometimes it's something else, life experience that is different. But you do have a way of really knowing, like, I can't think of an example, like Sugar Tooth or something like that, where you came in and just turned the screws and it was like, yeah, that's what we're trying to say.
Because we all experienced that.
Yeah,
so we sort
all
of were
did.
like able to collaborate on it. But this is so you, this album. These are like the stories of your childhood.
Yeah, it is like a memoir. But it's scary to write a bunch of, you know, it's kind of, you're in a comfortable place to write words and have someone else sing them. Now, I, not having considered myself a singer my whole life, and I do enjoy singing, but I've never been the type of person that's like, I want to be a singer. That's just not innately me. So it was scary, a process to have to write the words, and some of them are very deeply personal, and to sing them, and then to have to listen back and say, shit, I sang that, and now I have to sing it over and over now. So it is kind of scary, you know. It is. And then somebody came up to me today, actually, when we first got to this building today, and she came up to me and told me a story that she recently lost someone really close to her, and that one of these songs meant a great deal to her. And it was like, oh, man, this is important shit that we're doing. And it meant so much to me that she shared that with me. And it made me just think, like, you know, this is a very special thing for us to be able to be in a position to write something, and it might be scary for us to sing and share, but it means so much to someone. So that just it's like, man, I got to keep doing it, you know?
That really does.
Yeah.
What about you, Phil?
Yeah, it's scary for a couple different reasons, and like after just singing harmony for the last quarter of a century or whatever, you know, to like have to take the lead on a song is also there's a lot of learning, and then sort of failing, and then retrying, and then like at the end of the day, as far as making the record, we just sort of had to go like, well, that's just gonna have to be what it is, because which sort of led to the theme and the title of the album too, being, you know, Vera, meaning authentic and genuine and real and something that's true. Because like at the end of the session, we were like, we can't just like re-record and keep trying forever. Like, this is us, and this is a document of where we are. And
I'm glad you said that, because some people think it's a name. So explain more about
yeah, Vera. When we were making this record, and you know, somewhere towards the end, we're kicking around names, and that's just a word that popped into my head, and I couldn't remember why it kept popping into my head. But it's, you know, I looked it up, and I was like, oh yeah, I know this word from before. Yeah, and it was just it's a Latin word for, you know, you poet geeks out there. But yeah, it means authentic, real, genuine, true. And I thought, well, this is why it's like knocking on my door, you know. I thought it was the perfect name.
So there are some of your best works on this album, and lyrics that the first time I heard it just absolutely blew me away. I was going to ask you guys about some specific ones, and we don't even have to do the like formulaic thing where you tell me what it's about if you don't want to, but I just want to talk about that lyric and like how you came to that. So I want to talk about Under the Weather, because I love the line, I'm always under the weather over the moon. It's like, who can't relate to that manic state, you know, and then the fallout from it. That's how it struck me, was this kind of like mood regulation song, you know, and through the lens of weather. So tell me about that one. I just think it's so good.
Yeah, that particular lyric came to me before any music. That was one of the, sometimes we write songs with just music first or lyrics first. There's no rhyme or reason for me anyway. And that one came to me as a lyric first. It was like a poem that I had intended to put music to. And I tried to put a different set of chords underneath it. It didn't work. But yeah, that lyric, it's just kind of, I've had some struggles with my mental health over the years. And I can't even take credit for it. It just came to me like most lyrics do. It just,
The best ones.
yeah, I just played it and I started singing it, and I was like, well, it just was summarized how I can feel. I'm doing a lot better. I've done a lot of work on myself, but coming off a tour a couple of summers ago, I was really struggling, and I struggled again after we got off last fall. I was like, man, it's kind of a recurring theme. God, I'm always under the weather when I get home.
But seasonal even for you.
Yeah, it can be, yeah, for sure. And I just thought it was worth going with. And also, yeah, I'm always under the weather or over the moon, and you know, when you're in that place. But the lyric,
I've got no place to land between
no
the
place
two.
to land between the two. You're just stuck. But the lyric that I really think that brings it all home is, you know, I'm searching for the way down. Like the point is that, you know, there's solid ground down there. You just gotta fucking wade it through. You gotta ride it through. You know, everyone can get crazy. It can be hard to be in that place, but the ground is fucking down there.
Yeah, it always is.
Yeah.
And Phil, I when I hear If Everyone Had Someone Like You, I hear the guy that wrote the story. It's so clear to me that that's the person that wrote the story. So tell me about that one. And you're so whimsical. You're so eccentric. Your music is really eccentric, you know. And that demo that everybody heard, like, that's the real you, you know. Yeah. So tell me about how you were able to really achieve your kind of authentic self on that tune.
I was just going for something, you know, just a little out of this world, you know. Yeah. And we ended up kind of grounding it, bring it back down to earth with some like acoustic, you know, instrumentation or whatever. But I don't know. I love one of my favorite parts about music is just melody, because it's this invisible, magical thing that can like has these properties that can like make you feel things, and like it's its own language, you know. And so yeah, I just wanted to like write a song that was very, you know, low and high and interesting chord changes. And
that's why your melodies are so much fun to sing, Because they're so floor to ceiling, you know?
Oh, thanks. I got that from Erasure.
Yeah?
And the Beach Boys. And the Beach Boys kind of, you know. But, yeah, that was like maybe the first song I think we recorded for the album. And we got a little further down the road and decided maybe it doesn't fit. But then we got a little further still, and we're like, yeah, maybe it needs a little light moment.
Yeah. Well, you're sweet. You're sweet too. You're good at writing about love. You know, that's not easy for everybody. I think it's God. What does Joni say? She says, I either paint my joy and write my pain, or vice versa. One of the two.
Right.
But you really seem to write love. Like love comes from you when you write.
It's like there's so much love in the world, but all the bad shit is noisy, you know. And there it really is a lot more good than bad, and like I think it's just okay to I think it's not uncool to like be a guy and sing about that and write about that. I think it's like it needs to be recognized that hey, there's also cool shit, you know.
Isn't like Ringo one of your heroes because he's always like peace and love, peace and love?
Yeah, I love
You
that,
love that.
man. Peace and love. And he's such a hippie, and I love when he says shit like, hey, like December 10th at 2 o'clock Pacific time, if everybody in the whole world says peace and love, we can like send this shit out and change the world. I'm like, I love that stuff.
It's a total
I love it.
Phil thing to say.
But I know it's just it's a small song and it's a small idea, but like he's right though. You know, all this shit adds up. You know.
Yeah, you're right.
We need
You're
it.
both right about both of those things. And that juxtaposition, that polarity of you guys being able to write that way, it's really similar to your voices. You know, for Tim to be able to write pain and to really understand and take a microscope and put it on mental health in the way that he does, and for you to be able to write love and lighten up the world as you do it, it's like what your voices do. It's like, I say this all the time, and this is why whenever you come to a Brandy Carlile show, you'll never hear Tim and Phil's voices coming out of the speakers separately. Because they really do complete each other, you know, not in a codependent sense. But sonically and spiritually, they do, you know. It's like Tim's got this wide tone, this pipey, lower sounding voice. And Phil's got a really kind of cranial, horn-shaped voice that's just pointy. It's pointy and it cuts and it's serrated like a knife. There's an edge on it. And when you put those two voices together, I mean, I love grit. I love grit. When you put those two voices together, that's like one voice. That's the sound of the twins, you know. And it's very interesting to me that their lyrics do a similar thing. And then I want to ask about one more song specifically because it's an esoteric, and I think it sounds abstract, but I think you have a foundational reason for writing it, and I think everybody is probably curious about this song. Let's talk about Loyal Soldier. It's such an interesting metaphor, right?
You thought I was crazy before. Here we go. So the Loyal Soldier is, I was talking to my lady of the island, our therapist Pam, who's a wonderful, yeah, she's a wonderful lady. She's been a really good friend of mine over the years, and all of ours actually. She's the first time we met, we were doing band therapy like 15 years ago when we met Pam because we were kind of embarking on we thought we had it bad back then. Little did we know, but I was talking to Pam a couple of years ago, and I was having a hard time, and she's so great. You know, whenever she wasn't talking about what we needed to talk about. She was like, "Oh God, I was on the internet and I saw this crazy thing. It was this Japanese guy that got pulled out of a hole at 28 years after World War II had ended, and he'd been living in this hole in the ground. And yeah, it's called a Loyal Soldier. You should look it up." And she didn't say much else about it. And I got off the phone with her, and I looked up this Loyal Soldier. And anyway, the concept is these after World War II had ended and America took Guam, there was a lot of Japanese soldiers on the island there that were afraid to come out of the jungle for fear of death or for fear of even bigger fear of dishonor by their own countrymen. And so they retreated into the jungle, and they stayed there, some for a year, some for several years. And every couple of years, America would come back and say, "All right, the war's over. You guys got to come out of the woods." So over the years, they kind of dwindled, and after 28 years, there was just one guy left. And he was surviving off the land for years, making his own clothes out of bamboo grass and trapping shrimp and fish and and just living off the land and living in a hole that he had dug into the ground and only coming out to survive by night. Anyway, he was found by some local Guam fishermen in the 70s, and they finally took him home, and he thought that he was going to go home to disgrace and be killed. And when he got home, he was a national treasure and a hero. They threw him a parade, and he became this, he didn't know that he was a hero of war this whole time. Anyway, I could go on all day about this, but I won't. It's worth looking up. I found this out-of-print book on eBay called 28 Years in the Guam Jungle, and there's one copy that I found in the world, and I bought it, and I just dove in and read all about this guy's life. It was so fascinating to me. And but how the loyal soldier pertains to mental health is, I was turned on by Pam again to this book called Soulcraft, and it was kind of a self-help, kind of a new agey book. And there's one little paragraph in this book, and it talks about the loyal soldier concept, where inside of us, when we experience some kind of trauma or hardship when we're young, we create these mechanisms, or in ourselves, like, we get angry, or we become people pleasers, or whatever we need to do to survive as kids. And we hang on to these things long after we need them. We don't need them as adults. We don't need to referee people in our lives and take care of them. We're adults now, but we still have this formative thing that's such a big part of us, and it can become so unhealthy and hurtful, and it can harm you, it can even kill you. And so that's our loyal soldier. And so I loved that, the idea that we can take this person in us that causes us harm and be like, you know what? Thank you for your service. Please fuck off.
Here's a parade.
Yeah. Anyway, so the loyal soldier. It is a strange song because it's literally about a man that has lived his adult life in a hole in the ground, in fear, and also it's a song about releasing a part of yourself to make your life better. Yeah.
Amazing. When you guys hear that, you're going to hear it totally different. I knew that before I listened to it, so I was like blown away by that song when I heard it. And I don't know. I think I would have been even if I didn't know that's what it was about. But that's a really good explanation. Amazing. I think Bernie Taupin would be pretty intrigued to hear about how you wrote that, because it's probably the closest thing. It's a metaphor, but it's the closest thing to a fiction I've ever heard you write too.
Yeah.
Because it's just based on a story. It's a real story, but there's a lot of texture in there that you couldn't possibly know about. So you had to make up some things and paint that picture a little bit.
Yeah, and again, it was a song. I mean, I was sitting at the piano, and I just belted out, "Take me to your leader." And then I was like, oh yeah, this is a song about this guy that I was just learning about. I didn't set out to write it. And then after about 10 minutes, I was like, no, this is a song about me. And so it was really just a gift of a song. Again, I didn't try to write it. It just can hardly take credit for it. It just happened after soaking up all this information,
I can't promise I'm not going to try to sing that one.
I hope you do.
So, I'm not above making lots of comparisons between artists. I always think of other artists when I'm experiencing new artists. I'm not one of those people that just sees everything as totally unique. I have always thought that if there's anyone in the world that you guys are incarnate of, it's the Everly Brothers. You're the Everlys to me. Yeah. And I remember T-Bone telling us when we were young that neither one of the Everly Brothers knew who the lead singer was. That they would each be taken into a separate place and taught a melody, and they would come together, and those melodies were so inventive and so diverse that they didn't even know whether one was a harmony or the other was a melody. Then they each sing their part, and their harmonies were just double melodies. And that's how the twins write, and that's how the twins sing. So beside the Everlys, what are the great harmony duos of all time that inspire you guys?
I mean, Simon and Garfunkel, they're like in the top 3. The Bee Gees, and I think number 1 has to be the Beach Boys. Just the whole, they're so inventive and melodious and beautiful, and yeah.
I think as an adult too, once we didn't grow up listening to Indigo Girls because I'd never heard of them. We were listening to the Ramones and Nirvana and shit. But but we did have all that in our parents' record collection. But then we got a little bit older and we learned of the Indigo Girls, and they're a great example of what we strive to be. You know, just meaningful and amazing. The way their harmonies work, and they each have these really individualistic voices. But they blend
Yeah,
together
I mean, I
perfectly.
think the Indigo Girls are a good example of how you guys do it because, well, they're probably the most like the Everly Brothers other than
Yeah.
you two. Just also because Amy doesn't sing harmony. She doesn't think she's singing harmony. But she is, you know? And Emily can sing harmony to anything, anytime. She's just got access to all those notes. She's classically trained. But Amy's harmonies are so inventive because they're just not harmonies to her, you know? And that's how your guys' writing is.
They have something really special too that the Everly Brothers didn't have, and I don't know what it is, but they kind of separate from each other, come back together.
Yeah, like they stagger the vocals and stuff.
Yes,
Yeah, I
stagger.
love
It's
that.
like incredible what they do. And I remember hearing them for the first time when we met and wondering why I'd never heard of them before. My mind was blown.
You heard of them when we met. A lot of hours in the van listening to the Indigo Girls.
I've heard plenty.
Guys, how was it different to be in the studio without me? What did you discover about yourselves in there?
Well, always.
Our expectations are a lot lower than yours, for one.
I mean, come on. It's so tough, dude, when you're trying to sing a record, but you're in a band with Brandy fucking Carlile. I mean, come on, man. Yeah, it was different being in the studio, you know, but, you know, we've been doing this together with Brandy for so long, too. There was also this whole aspect of, like, you know, making decisions on chord progression or lyrics or, like, how to sing something where I would just think, like, okay, what would Brandy do right here? Because I know she's going to hear it and make me do it again if she doesn't like it. No, not really, but it was sort of like you were there and you weren't there, you know, telling us what to do.
It did.
From far away.
But I mean, there had to be something where you were like, oh, this is different. This wouldn't happen like in our band.
Yeah, I think I felt a little directionless at first, honestly, you know. Everything we do, with our band, with you, you know, we really look to you for your creative input, and so we didn't have that to draw from. Not in the beginning anyway. We ended up having a great deal of that towards the end with mixing and stuff. But yeah, it's hard. And for me, I just at some point I was like, you know what? It doesn't need to be perfect. I'm not gonna sound perfect. I just want to sound like myself. And once I kind of like gave myself that permission to just be a person instead of a singer, that made it really easy for me. In the decision-making process, it just was like, does that sound like me? Sounds like me. That's good enough, you know.
That's great.
Yeah.
One of the songs I heard of when I listened to it, and I thought that must have been so nice for them. That sounds really free, and that's not something we would have ever done together. You know, this band would be the Poor Side of People.
Oh yeah.
When I heard that, I was like, well, that sounds like them. That's just them. And I really wondered what that must have felt like. It must have just really felt like kind of not giving a fuck, and it sounded really rock and roll.
Yeah, we almost didn't do it. We were playing it kind of towards the end of the session, and we grabbed your guitar, the old Gretsch Sonny.
Oh, yeah.
Your old uncle's old 59 Gretsch, and we just sat down on the couch. I was like, let me show you this song idea. This could be really cool. And as I'm sitting on the couch kind of playing it, diddly 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 diddly, Brandon walks up with a microphone and goes, and I'm still playing it and I'm singing it, and then he walks out and puts a microphone in front of the amp, and next thing we know, we're just recording it. And we didn't really set out
It sounds like that.
Yeah, it's just alive and a vocal and guitar, and then, you know, I think we did it 5 times or something. Yeah. And then we were like, we found a take that we could just make a little edit on and make it work, and it came together really naturally. It kind of came together almost like we were doing a demo or something. And I love the freshness of that. It kind of stands out on the record, but in a needed way. But I think it sounds like it was an unintentional play, and that's exactly what it was. So I think it fits in perfectly. Yeah.
A lot of the record was actually sitting down in a chair with a guitar and a microphone and recording something 5 or 6 times, then using the first time anyway, or second time, you know. But that was definitely happened quickly.
Yeah. Well, I think it's amazing. It sounds really unlocked. I was gonna say, what makes the Hanseroth? Okay, you know what? I've got a question for you that I'm dying to know about. This is the Recording Academy. So with honor to the Recording Academy, I actually want to ask a live question, if that's okay. You know, when we first started on the road and we first met, we got our record deal early on. We wanted to go everywhere as a trio and play music as a trio, but there were some people that didn't want to take all three of us. They just wanted me, or they just wanted to pay me or something, you know. And what we would do is we'd go as a trio anyway. And, you know, they would drive the van and sell the merch and help with the equipment and the guitar. And then every once in a while, whatever the headliner was, they would usually let us get up and sing What Can I Say in 3-part harmony once a set. But I remember in the beginning, you know, I would open up for like Howie Day or Ray LaMontagne by myself, and the Twins would watch the show, and I'd get off stage and I'd go, I got to learn to talk between songs. Because I wouldn't say anything. I didn't know how to speak to the audience. And then not long after that, we got taken out by Sean Colvin. Has everybody seen Sean Colvin play? Oh, she really knows how to talk to the audience, and she's fucking funny. Her comedic timing is like legendary, and she hand tunes her guitar because she can't see a tuner, and she gets a tuning fork out, and she's like, bing! And she does this whole thing, and it's like part comedy. You remember that? It's like part comedy, and it's soulful, and it's musical, but there's like a lot of talking. And so I learned how to talk by watching Sean Colvin talk to the audience in my very early 20s. And you guys don't say anything when we're on stage together, you know? It's just by design. But what does that feel like to you now to have to speak between the songs?
Well, we just have to figure it out, you know? And it's never something that's actually occurred before, like the last month. Because there's always somebody talking. Like, we're going to be playing tonight. I'm going to have to tune my guitar and be like, Brandy, would you come up here and say something real quick? You do a great job. So we learn a lot
Well,
from
we all learned it together. I'm wondering what that feels like to you. Do you panic? Like, 'cause I die inside. As soon as the song's over, my heart just starts pounding, and I know I have to say something, and it's got to be right. Or
Right.
funny, you know, or that I'm not going to say the wrong thing and regret. I mean, remember when we used to drink? God.
Right. Oh, my God, yeah.
On stage.
Thank God there weren't smartphones.
Oh, well,
know?
there were. You know, there's things out there I never want to see.
Yeah.
But, you know, and actually you talk more than Phil does. What's that been like for you? Is it stream of consciousness, or have you had to put some thought into it?
I don't think about it. If I have something to say, I say it before the song. But, you know, there's been a couple times where we've played to people that aren't our audience, like in Newport and stuff, and I realized I'm gonna have to work a little harder to let them know who I am. But I don't think about it. If I have something to say before the song, I'll say it, and if I don't, obviously you've gained by now. We aren't going to win an award for oration, my brother and I, but you know, because I've never fancied myself a front person. I've never. So we are learning to do it, but also I don't have any pressure on myself to. You know, I didn't promise to come out and say awesome stuff, you know. So I don't feel any pressure to.
Well, you did tonight.
Yeah. But I don't feel any pressure. I just want to come out, and I want to come across as just genuine. And, you know, if there's a truth in the song that I want to be understood in the lyrics that might not be obvious, maybe I'll say that. But I haven't given too much thought of it yet. But I also haven't found myself in a pickle on stage where it would have helped me. So
Yeah.
yeah. It'll come in handy.
Awesome. You made a joke recently before you played Broken Homes. You talked about the song being sad and long, and then you're like, honestly, a lot like my childhood, sad and long.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I played Broken Homes for my dad. I actually did this on a couple songs of the record. It kind of was, but on Broken Homes, I was like, yeah, what do you think? No, I played it for my dad, and he goes, yeah, kind of long. I was like thinking we were going to have this like amazing father-son moment where I just like kind of sang the song about my childhood, and he's going to understand because he was there and all this stuff. And he goes, yeah, it's long, right? And I was like, yeah, it's pretty long. All right, love you. That was it. And then I played the song for my mom, and who's, you know, a little more emotionally available, and she's obviously both of my parents are wonderful people. I played it for my mom, and she listened to the whole time, and she was tearing up. I could tell she just loved it. And I go, what do you think? The last note rang out, and she goes, that's sad. And so I was like, long and sad, just like our childhood. But our childhood wasn't long and sad. But anyway,
Whose wasn't? God.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I have some ideas about this. Am I going over or am I okay? Yeah, I'm okay, right? I see green lights, and I was told that if they get yellow, I should be worried. but maybe there's a yellow one somewhere I can't see it. My wife will come out and tell me if I'm a problem. So I have thoughts on this, and this might be a difficult question for you to answer, but we're not here for my thoughts. So what makes the Hanseroth Twins fundamentally different from the Brandy Carlile Band? What do you think sets you and your music apart from us and our music?
Ooh, I hadn't thought. You know, it's funny. I think of them as part of the same entity, actually.
Well, I think for one, we have different musical influences. Yeah. And when we're together, when we're writing, you know, the three of us, it's a combination of all that. And when it's just the two of us, it's like kind of like missing a third, you know, like the whole.
It's not missing anything.
Well, no, not missing. It's just it doesn't end up in the song, you know. Yeah. So it's more. Shape. Yeah, different.
But obviously, there's more masculine energy, you know.
Oh, tons. Yeah.
But I'll tell you what. That's so
it's not that funny.
But we're singing about, like, you know, some emotional stuff and important stuff, and you know, we have a lot of. We don't see a ton of male fans at our shows with Brandy. There are a lot, but there's not
more and more lately.
More and
actually,
more. Yeah. But I think some men like to get their news of the world from other men. And
that's really true.
And I think that when we sing about topics like mental health and suicide and other important topics like that, there are men that are going to be reached by that aren't going to be reached by a woman. So
it's sadly true. Yeah,
so
you're right.
I think in a way, I think that's important in a way, you know.
Yeah. I actually really agree with you. I think that there is something about men that I don't think is anything to be ashamed of, but it's fundamentally true that it's almost generational, or even like in, you know, our DNA, that there's a pastoral expectation of men to other men. And I'm inspired by it when I hear it from a distance, but I do wonder what that must feel like. And I hear that in a really cool way on this record. And I hear the Avett brothers when they do it too. I really quite like that earnestness that is, you know, brotherhood, actually. I hear brotherhood on this album. And it's not just the brotherhood between you two, it's the brotherhood that you have connected to other people, the way that you walk through the world. And that's different in our band, and it's quite cool.
Yeah, it feels good. You know, our origins come from a place of, like, just making a big loud noise and maybe being kind of macho while you're doing it. And I don't know when all that changed, but we haven't led a band for 20 years, and this time around it just came out the opposite way, a little quieter and willing to share its feelings, you know.
I think it's also really selfless. Your album is really selfless. It's not about a person. It's not focused on one very big personality, you know. And I like that, how it's a sort of some of its parts. The harmonies are that way. The lyrics complement each other. The music complements each other. You two and your perfect symmetry is really relevant and present on this album. I really think you should do this again. Will you?
Oh, yeah. We've already, like, talked about it, doing a Christmas record and a hard rock record. And we're down the road with it. But, yeah.
Yeah?
I'd like to do it again. I'd like to do something a little different. You know, I'm sort of, after the last forever, sort of tired of the sound of acoustic guitars. I'd like to do something a little heavier.
Fuck off.
Oh, I just said a little, not completely exhausted of them.
Tired of the sound of acoustic guitars.
I mean, just me?
Yes.
Actually, you know, it's funny, oddly enough, the stuff I have been working on lately has been very, very heavy.
Oh, cool.
Musically, but, you know, not really a place for that.
I think you guys made the Americana album of the year. I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Thanks, Brand.
I'm so proud of you
guys.
both.
Thank you. We're really proud of it.
So I see yellow lights. And I think that means it's time to go to Q&A. So how was the interview? Was it good? Did we do a good job? Great. Okay. So do you guys want to walk around with a microphone, or are we just going to holler? Okay, and I'll repeat your question before so that people on the live stream can hear it. Okay, there was a gal just behind the girl with a pink shirt on. Yeah, you go ahead.
Awesome, thank you so much. You guys love this album. I was listening to you talk about Brandy not being in the
Oh, that's such a good question. Okay, she was hearing us talk about me not being in the studio, knowing I'm an Enneagram 1, which is the reformer, and she wondered what the twins' Enneagram numbers is, and I'm going to shut my mouth because I want to talk.
Well, I'm a 9, the peacemaker, don't like conflict, and just want everything to be zen and great all the time. So I'm a 9, and I have an 8 wing, which means once in a great while I can be a terrible, mean, awful person.
I'm a 7, the enthusiast. Are you a 7?
I would say my younger self is a 7, but no, I'm a 6 wing 7.
Oh, nice. I'm an 8 wing too. So everything's awesome, then all of a sudden it's not. But only for a little bit.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. We spent a lot of time with the Enneagram early on in our band, and it's like, I think, been really good for us to be able to understand each other and have a good laugh. Okay, there's a gal with glasses on top of her head in the back there. Yeah.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I was just curious, what was the catalyst to finally say, F it, we're going to make this album?
What was the catalyst to finally say, F it, we're going to make this album?
It was Brandy. She came to us and just suggested that we do it during the pandemic. It was, right?
It was, yeah.
Being the one she is, she's like, I got an idea for you. So it was her idea that we make the record, and I remember hearing it being like, why the fuck would we want to make a record? We put it on ice because we started getting a little busy during the pandemic doing live streams and stuff. And then again, she's like, hey guys, remember that record about a year ago? And she kind of gave us that encouragement and a nudge again to do it. And then we just looked at it seriously, being like, yeah, maybe it is time. And just having a little bit of time off with our band that we have together, we had that time, we had that space. We had the encouragement and support from her, and that was all we needed.
And I chose over you here on accident, the girl in the pink shirt. What do you got?
So I just had the pleasure of seeing you all at Red Rocks.
Oh, cool.
And Brandy did share that you had a side of the story to share with us. Could you tell us about that night that you guys didn't show up?
Okay, this is their chance to defend themselves on the night that they did not show up at the Rain Dancer early on in our relationship. Do tell.
Go ahead, Phil.
Well, first of all, I had never even heard of that night until like your book and reading that. So like, I know this is like way before cell phones probably. And so the only thing I can figure is like, it was Tim's fault.
No. It may have been. But we were drinking quite a lot back then. And also we did do a bunch of shows at the Rain Dancer. One day we showed up at I don't know if it was this show or not, because again, kind of fuzzy back then, but we showed up at the Rain Dancer with some guitars. Remember, I wanted to play a kick drum. I wanted to stand there and play. And the guy at the Rain Dancer, his name was also Tim. He was like, hey, you can't do that. It's an acoustic thing. And I was like, well, we're leaving then. Thinking he would say, you can bring your kick drum. And he goes, okay, bye. So we left. I don't know if that was that night or not, but
Nope.
I don't.
No, it wasn't.
So, I don't remember. I just don't remember. We probably were drunk somewhere, you know.
So
I'm sorry.
that's their side of the story, I guess.
But there's no story on this side because we just don't know
They've
what she's
really
talking
since
about.
made up for it. Yeah. What do you get?
So, how did you feel when Brandy tells you you're going to go to Hyde Park with her and Stevie Nicks? And how did you prepare?
Thank you so much. So they want to know, how did you feel when we said we're going to go to Hyde Park and play with Stevie Nicks?
Just elated. I mean, Stevie Nicks. I wore my cut-off, sleeveless Stevie Nicks T-shirt to the gig.
Brought so many scarves.
In hopes that she would see me walking around backstage with her fucking face on my shirt. I love Fleetwood Mac and I love Stevie Nicks, and yeah, we were extremely excited. And when you gave us the news, we were just like, what? We just couldn't believe it.
And the news kept getting better too. Hey, we're playing Hyde Park. Hey, it's with Stevie Nicks. Hey, it's 80,000 people. Hey, you're going to play with Abe Laboriel Jr., who's Paul McCartney's drummer, because Matt's not available. It was amazing.
I mean, it wasn't good news that Matt's not available. He is our brother and our drummer, but Abe Laboriel's pretty
no, that
fucking
that part
badass.
sucked, but it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like, hey, your dog ran off, but you're getting a new puppy.
He didn't run off. We were on a break.
Yeah, he was out with Diana Krall, right, or somebody like that.
And we were on a break. Okay, I see your hand up way in the back there.
So you guys have survived a period of the industry that's been very tumultuous.
Yeah.
And now we're in a whole new era where
That's a really good question. So she pointed out astutely that we've survived through a couple different eras of the music industry, and things have changed. Music has kind of switched to a digital medium, and how has streaming impacted our band as a trio and you guys and your record?
Ooh, well, we have never historically we're not a band that's, speaking for all three of us, we're not a band that has sold a ton of records. So there hasn't been a huge financial impact. But, yeah, you just, speaking for myself, you just focus on your art and what you can do creatively, and hopefully the people around you can have the tools to take it into that new era of how music is consumed. As far as me and my brother, we've only ever been the record's only been out a little bit, and we've never actually released a record where it came out, it didn't really come out physically. There were some CDs, but it just came out streaming only, and that's the first time we've ever experienced that. So the fact that anybody listened to it at all, we were just elated. We weren't going to make any money off this, even if millions of people listened to it. So to us, yeah, it's just a win. I guess it remains to be seen what's going to happen with that. But yeah, we just go ahead creatively and do our part, do our job, do our music and our art, and hopefully let the business people pull their weight.
We've never been a big enough, to be perfectly honest with you, a big enough artist with big enough streaming numbers to make me happy, and I believe that's about to change. So I think that we are going to be a huge band with big streaming numbers. And we do want to see our music translate to the modern medium without changing anything about what we do artistically. And I will also say that our music and our band is very interactive and very intimate. I'm looking out at the faces of people that I have known for years. I feel like I know so many of you people. And we have a physical nature, a connection to one another from shows, and we want to, I want to rip off this this page of questions and give it to somebody who wants it, because it's my first interview of the Twins. I want there to be a physical connection between us. I want you to want our vinyl albums, and I want you to even want our CDs if we have them, or if we decide to do something novelty like cassette tapes and T-shirts. I want all that shit to be shared between us. And I want to be a huge band with huge streaming numbers. So maybe it's going to take us a while to get there, but nothing's kept us from persevering thus far, and I don't expect that to change. Let's talk to this lovely lady in the Joni beret back there.
So what's on the horizon for BCB? What's next? What's recording next?
Well, we've got a whole bunch of secrets. We got a whole bunch of secrets and a whole bunch of plans and a great big shit-eating grin, and a pretty amazing next era and next chapter ahead of us that we're all going to share together. The timeline. Right now, starting right now. Glasses, curly hair friend right here.
Hey there,
Hi.
Wendy.
Hi, Wendy.
Just talking about your influences on this album, and I don't know whether you heard it or felt it or not, but like on Poor Side of People, like that is a straight out Stray Cats to me.
Poor Side of People, Stray
Oh,
Cats.
absolutely.
Just like with the
Love the Stray Cats.
yeah, just the
And
yelps and the guitar.
yeah, and they were inspired by Eddie Cochran and Little Richard and those before them. But yeah, Stray Cat, love
Yes,
Stray
music
Cats.
history.
So I just heard this today when I was listening to your arrangement of A Little Respect. I actually felt Elvis Unchained Melody.
So she felt Elvis Unchained Melody in A Little Respect.
Oh, yeah.
So cool.
Oh yeah.
Right, yeah.
And
I think-
Everly's. And Everly's.
Absolutely. No, that's all in there. This is like our childhood. That's what we listened to growing up, the oldies. And
I'm being told one more question, and this gal right in the middle, her hand went up. That's you, yeah. Sweet Blazer.
I never ask questions, so this is, but this is for all three of you. If you could share one song with someone who is not on this earth anymore, who would that be, and what would the song be?
One song to someone who's not on this earth anymore. What song would that be, and who would it be?
Oh my goodness, that's such a good question. you know, it's not a song that's released. I spent last week hanging out with my mom, like interviewing her about her father, who died when she was really young in a car accident. And I wrote a song this last week that I finished, and I haven't called it anything. His name was Wesley, so I just wrote Wesley on the top of my page. And so I would share that. Hopefully that song will make it on our next record together, or our next record. It'll come out at some point. And I never got to meet him, but I would share that song with my grandfather who I never met.
Maybe I would share our song Sugar Tooth with our buddy Jerry, who the song was written about, just so he could know how much we really cared about him.
I think I would share this song, We Are the Champions, which she did know this song, but I didn't get a chance to tell her while she was here because she left us too soon with Michaela Mabinti to Prince. You guys want to hear some music from these boys?
Those questions were awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was a real pleasure. We love you all. Thanks for supporting us and showing up today.
Thank you, Brandy.
Thanks, Bram.